Josh Wilton, and we're here at Queenston Realty, and we don't let internet outages slow us down. But I do believe the cold is literally like crippling our internet. So again, tonight we are going to talk ADUs. So let's go back to where we were before I got caught off on the internet. So in January of 2026, January 5th to be precise, Princeton regulated short-term rentals for the first time. And they basically are going to phase them out. Unless you're in the short-term rental business now, in 3 years, you will not be on the go forward. And in 3 years, unless you're an owner-occupant, you will not be in the short-term rental business. So Princeton is tightening speculative rentals. Like, there's no doubt it's clamping down. However, it is expanding different home ownership options. A lot of people, and it's all the rage, right? All the rentals that are being built in Princeton, and there's a lot of them. Literally hundreds of rentals being built in Princeton. There's the seminary. There's the ones at the shopping center. The corner that I'm on at 344 Nassau Street, I believe there's going to be 180 rental units built on this site, right? I think the whole corner is going to be transformed within a few years. The Jewish Center, where two of my kids went to nursery school, is going to be transformed in a couple of years. They're going to put, I think, 18 sites on that. John Street's going to get some. There's going to be some on Spruce Street. So all over the downtown, close to transportation, et cetera, they're building affordable housing and mixed-use housing at the train station here on Harrison Street. That's all apartments. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of apartments being built in Princeton. It just is what it is. If you don't want to live in an apartment, but you want some level of affordable housing, what do you do, right? And basically, what that will be in the future will be an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU, right? Another word would be a granny flat, right? They've been legal in Princeton for a long time. So the old rules for ADUs were pretty restrictive in Princeton. They always were allowed in the borough, just for the record. There's houses that have ADUs. You've driven by them for 30 years. You have no idea there's an ADU on that lot or in that building or whatever. But the old rules were pretty restrictive. You had to have lived on the site, not dissimilar to the short-term rental regulations they just passed. The unit could not be sold separately. So if I sold the site, I had to sell both units. So that law was challenged, right, by a local architect and a local law firm and a local builder. And basically part of it was said, the financing of selling two units is much more difficult than the financing of selling a mini house. So the town capitulated, short version, and ADUs now became legal. So if you're a single family homeowner in Princeton, more or less you can build an ADU, depending on your lot size, I guess you could say. Some of them are just so small you can't. If you're multifamily or a duplex, you definitively cannot build an ADU right now. So right now, Princeton has, for the first time, ADU regulations unified across residential zones. So that was 2020 with Ordinance 2020-16, changed by the Princeton Council. I believe it was Mia Sachs was the champion of that bill. So basically, overnight went from being an exception to a definitive housing tool. Like anything else, it takes time to pick up steam. So now we're in 2026. For comparison, the Mount Laurel obligation started in 1975, but all these towns kept fighting it. Princeton really got into the fold on this relatively recently. So one of the things that you're going to see, and one of the things you're going to hear about a lot, right, is ADUs. And it's going to impact you if you live here, and it's going to impact you if you want to buy here. So, and at the end of today's show, I'm going to tell you my opinion if ADUs will increase the value of your home. So ADUs can now be sold separately. So one of the rules that was changed from the architect and the builder and the law firm that contested it, I think rightly, was that they couldn't be sold separately. Now they can be sold separately. So play this out. I live in a 2,500 square foot house in Riverside or in downtown on Linden Lane, right? I don't need my big house anymore. My kids have gone off to college. What are my options? Where can I move in Princeton? I want to sell my house. Where do I go? There was no middle. There was no middle ground for housing in Princeton. I had to sell. I had to go to a townhouse out of town. I had to drive, et cetera. The ADU is that missing middle piece for people to stay in town, age in place. rent their big house, create income, sell their big house, cash out, and live in a little house. So there's all these different possibilities because of the new rules that were passed. Most towns in the ADU business still require owner occupancy. So, California was the forerunner of the ADU law, and Princeton was the forerunner in New Jersey. So basically, is this a good thing for Princeton? So yeah, I think it's a good thing for Princeton. I think it's a good thing for real estate. And this is where, let's talk numbers, right? So an ADU, how big can you build an accessory dwelling unit? It can't exceed 25% of the main house, right? So it can be 800 square feet or 25% of the main house, whichever's bigger. So these are small 2-bedroom, 2-bath units, and that's right out of the zoning code. So the ADU, if it's restricted as affordable housing, deed restricting, right, or built to be ADA accessible, the cap jumps to 1,000 square feet or 30% of the main house. So if you build an ADA compatible ADU, which is right, you can build a bigger ADU, so you can get more square footage, and that's a lot. Like every square footage matters in these houses. So even the room count changes. So a standard ADU can have 3 habitable rooms, affordable housing, or ADA up to 4. So that's not accidental. Princeton's trying to use the zoning code to really focus on accessibility and affordability, right? Not just through size or mandates. They're trying to do it through smart density, smart housing. So with ADUs, it's like, can you actually get this through planning board? And I'm going to give you some instances of things that are going on now, and I'm going to share my screen in a minute. And then I'm going to talk about those specific sites, and I'm going to give you my opinion is if the neighbor's house is going to go up and down in value, right? So again, if the ADU has 2 habitable rooms, there's no automatic requirement for extra off-street parking. So if it's a small ADU, you take a portion of your house, if it's applicable, and you sell it or rent it, right? You don't need extra parking. You can have parking. One of the rules is that the ADU on a housing lot can only have 1 curb cut. So you're really going to have 1 driveway, right? Setbacks are pretty typical. They're up to about, they're pretty normal setbacks for the lot. Few exceptions there. They can't really exceed 20 feet in height. So this is where it gets interesting. So I am just going to do my best to share my screen and I'm not a Google expert yet, but I'm going to share my entire screen and hope for the best. So this was an article in Sustainable Princeton, right? People empowering Princeton, small space, big impact, Barbara's ADU. So that's Barbara, I can only assume. And I think that's Barbara's son and his wife. So Barbara, this is literally, I'm going to read this. Barbara always dreamed of building sustainably housing. So when the ordinance for accessory dwelling units was allowed, she saw it as a perfect opportunity to build a green ADU in her backyard. And that is actually a picture of it. Quite cute. Looks like a little Swedish cottage, right? And I should know that. We have Swedish people running all over this office. So, and I want to get to this picture. So if you're looking at this, right, that's the main house. That's the ADU. So if you drive by, that little ADU doesn't look like anything more than a cottage, maybe a garage in the backyard. So a lot of people are against ADUs because it's new, which is fine, because it's changed, which is fine. And the question is, will it impact my home if my neighbor builds an ADU? Yeah, it will. Your home price is going to go up without question. Indubitably, it's going to go up. So, and again, this particular ADU, which is on Linden Lane, is all electric. They did not run gas lines. They're running it off heat pumps and fan. And you see it right here. So this is a very smart, very green building. And what's interesting is that Barbara owns both houses. So in the article, I believe it says Barbara's son and daughter-in-law are going to live in the main house. Barbara's going to live in the back. Barbara gets now to age in place. Maybe your son pays a rent. Maybe he doesn't. I have no idea. But Barbara can sell that main house, cash out, and live for free other than her taxes in the ADU in the back. She can live in the main house, rent the ADU. She can live in the ADU, rent the main house. She can sell them both. She can keep them both, whatever. But basically, you're getting 2 houses on 1 lot, right? Which, again, sounds like it's going to be disturbing. So I'm going to give you another example. This is 189 Moore Street. So this house just sold for 1.6 million. It was originally listed at 1,699. And here's the interesting thing. It sold at $761 a square foot. It was a house on Moore Street that was bought and refurbished. However, if you see the corner here, that's the ADU on that lot. So let me get to a different picture because this is where it gets interesting. That's the backyard right there. So in the backyard of this house, there's a common area, main house, ADU. That's Princeton High School right at that tree, right? So driving by, you'd never know it. That's the front of the house. And go through the pictures of the house, and I'll show you how they did the kitchen because it's interesting. That's the kitchen. So instead of having expansive windows out the back, there's just a smaller window out the back. What's interesting is the front house sold for 1.6. The ADU sold before it ever hit the market, and it exceeded, from what I understand, over $900,000. So again, did the ADU conversion at 189 Moore Street hurt the neighbors? No. As a matter of fact, I think the neighbors' home values went up as a result of the fact that a 2-bedroom, 2-bath cottage sold for almost $1 million in the backyard of the main house, right? I mean, think about that. This is an ADU that's literally being built as we speak at 8 Valley Road in Princeton. So again, it looks kind of cool. I do like modern, so, in defense of modern here, but this is the site plan right here, right? So this is the main house, parking. This is the ADU. So the parking area is in the middle. You see, it only has one curb cut from the curb, right? You're not going to have 2 driveways coming into this lot. It's one driveway, common area parking, ADU, main house. This is what it's going to look like when it's done. I honestly, if it's not your thing, that's cool. That's great, right? But I want to show you, this is what it looked like before they knocked it down. And again, I don't care, right? But as I was reading the planning board and the zoning board, people were against this site being developed from this to this. I literally don't understand how this is better. So in this particular site at 8 Valley Road, if you want me to stick to the merit of the show, policy and property, is the home value on that street going up? Yes, indubitably. The ADUs sell at a very high clip, very high price per square foot, as does modern new construction. Modernist, mid-century modern sells amongst the highest price per square foot of any real estate in Princeton. So why? People like it. Some people don't. Fine, don't care, but that's just the market speaking more than anything. So again, here's a list of all the rentals that are being built in Princeton. Hillier on Witherspoon Street, 360, 364, 366 Nassau Street, which is more or less this lot. The Holler Center is going to be 130 units, 26 affordable. The Jewish Center, 245 Nassau Street, which is a bunch of older commercial buildings on Nassau Street. All of this is going to be rentals. So in order for people to be able to buy and stay in Princeton and stay as homeowners, not everybody wants to live in a rental, right? This is the future of development in Princeton. There's not many lots left to develop, so you're going to kind of get like a 2-for-1 lot scenario in Princeton. So, in the case of 8 Valley Road, our home price is going up. Yes, this will transform that neighborhood. Home prices all across Valley Road will definitely go up as a result of this. You may not like the style, but I'm just telling you the math of the market. Why am I qualified to talk about it? Again, I've been in this market, in this industry, in Princeton for over 20 years, helped thousands of people buy and sell, have brokered over $2 billion in real estate in this market. So let's talk about another one, 469 Ewing Street. This is a really interesting and at the time, relatively controversial development. So instead of taking an old house, which was completely non-functional, it was functionally obsolete. That's what happens to housing, by the way, right? For all the historic advocates, housing does become functionally obsolete. You have to change housing because what was acceptable in the 1860s is not acceptable now. The house that was on the site was a 1940s split level, which I think had been added on to over and over and over, right? So it was a little bit disjointed. Cool enough house, great location, right on Ewing Street in downtown on a sidewalk to Nassau Street. So again, what's interesting about this site development, instead of having a house and an ADU, you're going to have two houses and two ADUs on this site, right? So what does that mean? It's becoming a cottage court. That's the vernacular for what this is. So you took a site with a relatively functionally obsolete house that was for sale for 6 months. Nobody bought it. It didn't sell, which is indicative of the fact that nobody wanted it in its current form. They're putting two houses. This is what it's going to look like when you drive by from the front. Two ADUs in the back, right? And there's going to be a garage bay in the back. When you drive by the site, it's not going to look like much from the street, but there's going to be four houses in replacement of one. Now, some of you may say, oh my God, the traffic, oh my God, this and that. Yes, traffic in Princeton's increasing. I get it. As I was sitting here tonight preparing for tonight's broadcast, the fire brigade went past and it sounded like I was in Lower Manhattan on a weekday afternoon. It was loud. It was busy. That's going to continue. But what I want to put this in context against is, what's the choice for somebody who wants to live in Princeton, own their home, and not be an apartment? They can live in a big house, and currently Palmer Square, like that's it. This is going to give people options in Princeton. So when you think about, what's coming in Princeton in terms of housing and real estate, this is at the forefront of what's coming, the ADU phenomenon, as I call it. And I think it's a good thing. So again, the reality is, like, Princeton is very proactively shaping its housing policy. So it's tightening short-term rentals. It's allowing accessory dwelling units to be developed. Princeton just revamped again some residential areas in the town to allow what they call gentle density and prevent builder remedy, which is the builder's ability to sue Princeton and build whatever they want in the town. So again, when you look at what's happening with the ADUs in town, good or bad, it is happening. The good of it is that people are going to have options to stay in town as they age, myself included, right? People are going to have options to take their single family home, develop it, build an ADU, keep one for themselves, give one to their kids, sell one, stay here, rent it, whatever. So it's going to create more density. It's going to create a little bit more traffic. In comparison to the traffic that's happening throughout town, it's a pretty minimal scope and scape. So that is the ADU Masterclass for Princeton. If you have any questions, obviously, feel free to reach out anytime. And that's it for Policy and Properties. My name's Josh Wilton. Thanks for tuning in.